The engine dies mid-breath. No warning. Just a cough and silence. She turns the key again. Nothing. The heater fades. The windshield fogs from the inside. Snow presses against the glass like a living thing. Come on, she whispers. Not now. The battery clicks once, then quits. Wind rocks the car hard enough to make the frame groan. Her phone has no signal. The road behind her is gone. The road ahead is gone. White in every direction. She presses her palms against the steering wheel and feels how cold it already is. I can walk, she tells herself. It can't be far. But she knows that is a lie. 3 slow knocks land on her window. She jerks toward the sound. A shadow fills the glass. Tall. Wide shoulders. Hat pulled low. She doesn't move. Another knock, firmer this time. Window down, a man's voice says through the storm. She shakes her head. Go away. The shadow leans closer. She can barely see his face through the frost. You'll freeze in there. I don't know you. Name's Boone. That doesn't help. The wind slams against the car again. He stays steady. You've got 5 minutes before your hands stop working. I'll take my chances. No, you won't. His voice is calm, not loud. My truck's running. Heat's on. She hesitates. He waits. I won't touch you, he adds. You can sit with the shotgun if that makes you feel better. Her eyes narrow. You swear? On my mother's grave. The word grave hangs between them like smoke. Her fingers tremble as she unlocks the door. The wind rips it open. Cold bites her face so hard she gasps. He reaches in, grips her under the arms, and lifts her out before she can protest. Put me down. Storm don't care about pride. Neither do I. He sets her on her feet beside a large truck idling through the snow. She studies him quickly. Massive frame. Thick coat. Old scar along his jaw. Not smiling. Not leering. Just steady. She climbs into the passenger seat and immediately grabs the shotgun resting near the console. He notices but says nothing. He closes her car door with one hand and leaves it buried. Inside the truck the air is warm, heavy with coffee and oil. He pulls back onto what used to be the road. The tires push through drifts slowly. You the new teacher? He asks. She keeps the shotgun angled low but ready. Yes. Should have come last month. I didn't control the weather. Weather ain't the problem. She glances at him. Then what is? He doesn't answer right away. Snow hits the windshield in sheets. The wipers fight hard to keep up. Town eats women whole, he finally says. She lets out a short breath that could almost be a laugh. Good thing I'm not easy to swallow. He looks at her briefly. They'll try anyway. The truck fishtails, then corrects. She tightens her grip on the gun. Why help me? She asks. Because you'd die out here. That's not what I meant. He exhales through his nose. Don't make it complicated. She studies the dashboard. An old sheriff's badge hangs from the rearview mirror, scratched and dull. You a cop? Used to be. Why'd you stop? Didn't stop. His jaw tightens. Was stopped. By who? People who prefer quiet. The word quiet settles heavy in the cab. The highway disappears entirely under a wall of snow. He turns the wheel toward a narrow path barely visible through fence posts. Where are we going? She asks sharply. My place. That wasn't the deal. The deal was warmth. She watches the empty white behind them. There is no going back. How far? 10 minutes if the wind behaves. And if it doesn't? We sit tight. She swallows. I don't even know your last name. You don't need to. I think I do. He glances at her again. Call me Boone. The truck climbs a low hill. In the distance, a dark shape forms through the snow. A house. A barn. Fences half buried. Isolated. She feels the weight of her choice settle in her chest. If you try anything, she says quietly, lifting the shotgun an inch, I won't miss. He nods once. I believe you. The truck rolls into the yard and stops. Wind screams across open land. He turns off the engine but leaves the keys in. You coming? He asks. She stares at the house. No lights in the windows. No movement. Just stillness. She grips the gun tighter, opens the door, and steps out into the storm, realizing she has placed her life in the hands of a giant stranger with a broken badge and a promise made on a grave. The front door shuts hard against the wind. She stands just inside, shotgun still in her hands, breath uneven as Boone drops a thick wooden bar into place across the frame. The house is dim, lit by 2 oil lamps and a low fire that snaps inside a stone hearth. The air smells like smoke and something older, something closed up too long. You can lock the door, he says. She does not answer. She slides the bolt. Chains it. Then drags a heavy chair under the handle. He watches without comment. You expect trouble? She asks. I expect men, he replies. She studies his face for humor. There is none. Her boots leave wet marks across the floorboards. The house is simple. 1 long table. 2 chairs. A worn couch near the fire. A hallway leading deeper inside. On the far wall hangs the sheriff's badge she saw in the truck, mounted crooked in a frame. It is scratched deep across the star. Below it sits a nail with nothing hanging from it. You live alone? She asks. Now. He pulls off his gloves and sets them by the stove. She lowers the shotgun but does not put it down. Your family? She presses. He pours coffee into 2 tin cups. Buried. The word lands flat. She says nothing for a moment. The wind rattles the windows as if testing them. Her eyes drift to the refrigerator. A child's drawing is held there by a magnet shaped like a horse. Stick figures. A tall man. A woman with long hair. A smaller girl between them. All 3 holding hands. How long ago? She asks softly. He hands her a cup. Long enough? Fire? She asks. He nods once. She swallows hard and looks away. On a hook by the hallway hangs a woman's coat, still dusted faintly with ash that never fully brushed out. You keep her things? She asks. House remembers better when you don't strip it bare. She feels that sentence in her chest. She sets the shotgun carefully against the wall but keeps it within reach. Why'd they push you out? She asks, nodding toward the badge. He leans against the counter. Governor's nephew got drunk. Drove through a fence. Killed a farmhand. And you arrested him? Yes. And? He takes a slow sip of coffee. And I was told to lose the paperwork. You didn't. No, she studies him in the firelight. So they voted you out? He shakes his head. No vote. Just pressure. Meaning? His eyes harden. Meaning my barn burned with my wife and daughter locked inside. The room feels smaller suddenly. The fire cracks loudly. She grips the cup so tight her fingers ache. They hurt your family because you wouldn't bend? He does not answer. The silence is answer enough. The lights flicker once. Then again. She looks toward the ceiling. Generator? Storm's messing with the line. Another metallic clang echoes faintly from outside, somewhere near the barn. She stiffens instantly and reaches for the shotgun. You hear that? She whispers. He nods. Probably loose tin. The clang comes again. Harder. Not wind. Deliberate. She steps closer to him without realizing it. They followed us, she says. Maybe. He moves toward the window but keeps to the side. Stay back. She ignores that and joins him, peering through the thin slit between curtain and frame. Snow moves in waves across the yard. For a second she thinks she sees a shape near the barn. Then it disappears. They know I came with you, she says quietly. They knew before that. She turns sharply. What does that mean? He faces her fully now. Principal called the sheriff this afternoon. About what? About you. A flush of anger replaces her fear. Because I wouldn't cut pages out of history books? Because you wouldn't keep quiet. She laughs once, bitter. He told me to dress softer. Smile more. Keep my voice down. Boone's jaw tightens. They don't like women who look straight at them. I've noticed. The metallic sound stops abruptly. Silence falls heavy over the property. Too heavy. You shouldn't have brought me here, she says after a long pause. You shouldn't have come to this county, he replies. She looks at him differently now. Not just as a stranger, but as someone who has already paid the price she is only beginning to glimpse. You're not afraid of me, he says. No, she answers. I'm afraid of the town. He studies her face carefully. They already started on you, didn't they? She nods slowly. Notes in my desk. Dead crow on the porch. Kids repeating things their fathers say. What things? She hesitates, then says it plain. That women who talk too much end up alone. He exhales sharply through his nose. You are alone, he says. Right now, she replies. Another clang erupts outside, louder than before, followed by the distinct crunch of boots in snow. Boone reaches for the shotgun at the same time she does. Their hands almost collide. He looks at her, not surprised, just certain. They found you, he says. They found you, he says, and the words are barely out before the first fist slams against the front door. The sound shakes the frame. She flinches but does not step back. Another hit follows, harder. The chair beneath the handle scrapes an inch across the floor. Boone, a voice calls from outside, muffled by wood and wind. We know you're in there. She grabs the shotgun fully now. Don't open it, she whispers. I won't, he answers. The pounding comes again. We saw the teacher's car on the road, another man shouts. Her stomach drops. Boone keeps his voice even. Roads closed. A laugh cuts through the storm. Let us in. We'll help her. She shakes her head violently. They'll say you kidnapped me. They already think worse, he replies. Glass rattles as someone hits the side of the house. She moves toward the hallway, then stops herself. Running would look like guilt. Another voice, deeper, steady. Boone, you still think you're sheriff? That one she recognizes from town meetings. The current sheriff. Boone reaches for the shotgun but keeps it lowered at his side. Go home, he calls out. Storm's bad enough. So is harboring stolen property, someone snaps back. She stiffens. Stolen, she mouths. Boone does not answer. A heavy boot kicks the door. The chain strains. Boone, the sheriff calls. Open up before this turns ugly. Boone steps closer to the door but does not lift the bar. Ugly's already here, he says calmly. She feels something settle inside her then. Not fear. Anger. Clear and sharp. She walks toward the door. Boone turns fast. Get back. No, this isn't your fight. It is now. The pounding stops suddenly, replaced by low murmurs outside. Waiting. Listening. She slides the chair aside before he can stop her. Are you crazy? He hisses. Maybe. She lifts the bar. If they think I'm hiding, they win. He stares at her for one hard second, then steps aside but stays close enough to pull her back if needed. She unlocks the chain and opens the door wide. 3 men stand on the porch, snow clinging to their coats. The sheriff in front, hat brim low, ice cold. 2 others behind him, both holding lanterns. Their light spills into the house like accusation. The sheriff looks past her first, scanning for Boone, then focuses on her. "Ma'am," he says, voice smooth. "You safe?" She does not step back. "Yes." His gaze flicks to Boone. "With him?" "Yes." "Did he force you to come here?" The question hangs thick. Boone says nothing. She feels his presence behind her like a wall. "No," she answers clearly. "My car died. He helped me." The sheriff studies her face carefully. "You sure you want to be alone up here?" She takes one small step backward, just enough that her shoulder brushes Boone's chest. "I am not alone," she says. One of the men behind the sheriff snorts. "He's got a temper, you know." She tilts her head. "So do I." The sheriff's jaw tightens. "Town's worried about you." "Town barely knows me." "We know enough." "About what?" she asks. He smiles thinly. "About how you talk." Boone shifts slightly behind her. "Careful," he says quietly. The sheriff's eyes flash. "This ain't your badge anymore." Boone's voice stays low. "No. It isn't." The sheriff steps closer to the threshold but does not cross it. "Ma'am, roads will clear by morning. You come with us now." She looks directly into his eyes. "I'm staying." Silence drops heavy between them. Wind moves snow across the porch in thin sheets. "You don't know what you're tying yourself to," the sheriff says softly. "I know enough." "He brings trouble." "So do you," she replies. The 2 men behind him shift uneasily. The sheriff studies Boone one more time. "You always did like lost causes." Boone answers without blinking. "You always did like cowards." The air tightens. For a second she thinks someone will reach for a weapon. Instead, the sheriff spits into the snow at his boots. "Storm'll bury you both," he mutters. He steps back off the porch. The other 2 follow, lantern light shrinking into the white. She closes the door slowly and drops the bar back into place. The house feels smaller now, but steadier. She turns toward Boone. "You shouldn't have said that," she tells him. "They needed to hear it," he replies. "They don't hear women," he adds after a beat. She meets his eyes, voice firm. "Then I'll make them." Outside, the storm rises again, wind circling the house like something alive, something waiting for the next crack in the walls. The wind stops suddenly. Not a soft pause, but a hard, eerie stillness. She moves toward the window, something prickling at the edge of her spine. "What is that?" she whispers. Snow has shifted around the barn. Shapes that weren't there before now appear, subtle mounds against the drift. Boone freezes beside her. "You didn't cover it deep enough," he says quietly. She steps closer. "Cover what?" The snow reveals 2 wooden crosses, half buried and tilted. Her breath catches. One for a woman, one for a child. She feels the air thicken, like the house itself is holding its breath. "You buried them here?" she asks, her voice barely above wind. Boone's jaw tightens. "Town wouldn't give them a plot." She steps outside despite the cold, boots crunching against the ice. The crosses are rough, names carved with a heavy hand. She kneels. "Fire?" she asks, already knowing. He nods. They locked the doors. No one left alive inside. She closes her eyes for a moment, swallowing the horror. "Because of the arrest?" "Because I didn't bend," he says simply. She glances at him. His face is unreadable. "They think fear keeps order," she says softly. "They're right," Boone answers. The wind moves again, circling them, carrying the faint smell of smoke and old pine. She studies the crosses. I lost my mother to men like them, she says quietly, not looking at him. Boone says nothing. The snow drifts around her knees, cold biting through gloves. She taught school. Spoke up about books they didn't like. He finally shifts, moving a hand through his hair. And they called her dangerous. Told her to shut up. Told her to leave town. A long pause. The wind presses against them from every direction. Boone exhales, slow and low. I should have left with them, he mutters. She steps closer. You stayed. He looks at her briefly. For pride. For justice. For stubbornness. She meets his gaze. For love, she says, voice low but certain. He freezes, blinked once, unprepared. Outside, snow drifts in small spirals, catching the weak light from the house. They won't stop, he warns. Neither will I, she replies, not moving back. Something shifts between them. Not fear. Not trust yet. Alignment. A mutual understanding forged in grief and quiet defiance. Boone kneels briefly beside one of the crosses, brushing snow from the carved names. I should have buried them deeper. Then let's dig, she says. His eyes catch hers, incredulous. You'd help? I'd rather work than freeze. Besides, she gestures at the horizon, where the storm clouds still press thick and heavy. Someone has to mark truth where they try to hide it. He nods slowly. They dig together, hands raw, snow freezing onto skin through gloves. Silence grows around them, punctuated only by shovels breaking ice and wind hissing along fence lines. Hours seem to pass. Or maybe minutes. Time is impossible out here. When they finish, Boone stands, brushing snow from his pants. She looks at the newly covered graves, feeling a weight lift slightly from the air. They bury truth. Just like they buried his family, she says. Boone studies her, expression unreadable at first, then softening imperceptibly. You're not afraid of me, he observes. She shakes her head. I'm afraid of the town. He takes a step closer. They already started on you, didn't they? They left notes in my desk. Dead crow on the porch. Kids repeating things their fathers say. Boone's jaw tightens, fist clenching once before he relaxes. They'll try to scare you. Always do. She looks back at the crosses, hands clasped around the edges of the fresh snow. I won't let them. Not anymore. The wind swirls violently now, raking across the barn and house, as if testing their resolve. Boone watches her, seeing something he hadn't in years, fire without fear. Stay, she says, voice barely above the wind. I won't leave you alone. He shakes his head slightly. I should have stayed buried with them. She steps closer again. You stayed alive. For a reason. A long pause. The silence of the land presses down on them. For the first time, she notices the way the barn leans slightly toward the house, its shadow stretching like a protective arm. She glances at Boone. We can face them together, she says. He studies her carefully. Together, he finally agrees. The storm still rages, but the snow around the graves is calm, untouched except for their footprints. The moment holds. Grief and anger, fear and stubborn courage, all settle into a fragile balance. Boone finally speaks, voice low. I don't know how to protect you from all this. She meets his eyes. Then don't. Stand with me instead. For the first time, he nods fully, without reserve. The wind carries a faint whistle over the snow, as if even the storm is acknowledging it. Neither moves to the house immediately. Instead, they linger, silent. By side. Respect, understanding, and quiet defiance pass between them. Finally, Boone gestures toward the house. Time to warm up, he says. She grabs the shotgun lightly, then sets it aside. Together, they walk back through snow that glints cold and pure, footprints side by side leading toward the hearth waiting inside. The storm's howl is no longer a threat, just noise, as if the wind knows they've claimed this space. Not fully theirs, not yet, but there's enough. They enter the house, closing the door against the white world, and for the first time that day, warmth is more than fire, it is survival, and a choice made. Inside the house, the fire burns low, shadows flickering across the walls. Boone sits at the edge of the table, coffee cooling in his cup. She perches on the couch, legs drawn up, watching him. The storm rages outside, wind howling against the roof like some restless animal. She doesn't reach for the shotgun this time. Instead, she folds her hands in her lap, eyes studying him, trying to read what he won't say. Boone looks at her over the rim of his cup. "You can stay," he says finally. She lifts her head. "Until the road's clear?" "Longer," he answers, voice calm, almost flat. She doesn't respond right away. The words hang between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. "What are you asking?" she says softly, leaning forward slightly. Boone sets the cup down with a muted clink. "Marry me," he says. The words are blunt, simple. She blinks. "That's your bold offer?" she asks, voice sharp, not because she's angry but because she can't believe she heard him right. "Yes," he says, eyes fixed on the table. "You don't love me." "No," he admits. "Then why?" "They won't touch a married woman on my land." She laughs, short and bitter, almost choking on the sound. "That's your solution?" "It's armor," he says plainly, as if armor could ever feel light. She shakes her head. "You're not offering love." "I'm offering protection," he says again, firm, unwavering. She stands and paces the small living room, boots creaking against the floorboards. "And what do you get?" "A reason," he says without hesitation. She stops mid-step, staring at him. "A reason for what?" "To fight," he says simply. "To live," he adds, after a pause. She turns toward the window, watching snow swirl outside. "You barely know me," she says. Boone rises slowly, steps closer, though still keeping the distance between them. "I know enough," he says. She tilts her head. "Enough for what?" "Enough to know you don't bow," he answers. Silence stretches. The storm thrums against the walls, but inside, time feels taut, stretching thin between their words. She moves closer to the hearth. The firelight catches the edges of her face, sharp against the shadows. "If I leave?" she asks quietly. Boone nods once. "Door stays open," he says. She studies him for a long moment. "Then I accept," she says finally. The words drop heavy. Boone tilts his head slightly, studying her expression. "Not because I'm afraid," she adds immediately, voice steady. "I know," he replies. "But because I'm done running." A low wind rattles the windows, as if echoing the decision, echoing the storm outside. He nods slowly, lips tight, not smiling but not frowning. She turns back to the fire, staring at the flames. "Marriage makes me armor, not love," she murmurs. "Good," Boone says, tone soft but precise. "Love can be dangerous out here." She laughs faintly, almost like a whisper. "Then armor is what I need." His eyes follow her every movement. "Armor it is," he says. Outside, the storm begins to soften, snow falling slower, gentler, though the wind still groans through the trees and over the barn. They sit together in a silence that isn't empty. Words have been exchanged, promises unspoken but understood. Each cup of coffee grows cold, forgotten. She glances at Boone. "You think this will stop them?" "No," he says immediately. "It won't stop them. But it complicates them." She laughs again, short, incredulous. "You make it sound simple." "Nothing simple about surviving," he answers. Her eyes travel the room, noticing small details, a photograph of a woman on the mantel, framed in cracked glass, the old rifle leaning in the corner, the faint smell of smoke lingering in the curtains. "I have to teach," she says quietly. "You'll keep that," he assures her. "I speak my mind," she adds. "Good," he replies. She looks toward the door, toward the snow that still blankets the yard. And if I leave? Boone repeats. You'd let me? She shrugs. Not my choice anymore, he says. She studies his face, then nods slowly. Then I'll stay. Boone doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to. Outside, the storm quiets further, the white horizon stretching endlessly. Inside, the house feels warmer, not just from the fire but from the weight of choice, from the quiet alignment between two people who have both lost too much to leave. She rises, stretches, finally moving toward the corner where the shotgun rests. Boone watches. Not picking that up, he asks. She shakes her head. I don't need it right now. Storm isn't gone, he warns. I know, she says, voice low, almost a whisper, but I'm done hiding. He studies her, expression unreadable, then finally nods. They sit together again, silence filling the space between words, filled with understanding, grief, and determination. Outside, snow continues to fall softly, blanketing the land, the barn, and the grave behind it. Inside, the fire crackles, warm and steady. A choice has been made. Armor is on. Survival begins. Boone finally lifts his cup. To armor, he says simply. She clinks her cup to his. To survival, she answers. For a moment, the storm seems to listen, receding slightly, letting the house hold them in a fragile bubble of warmth, trust, and defiance. Words are done for now. They are left only with the weight of decision, the quiet of the hearth, and the knowledge that nothing outside will be simple from this moment forward. The church doors swing open, creaking against frozen hinges. People whisper, shifting uneasily in the pews. She walks beside Boone, heels crunching against the icy path. Hands do not touch, but proximity hums with unspoken tension. The sheriff blocks the aisle, arms crossed, hat low. This ain't lawful, he says, voice tight. Boone's shoulders square. It is. The governor's nephew steps forward, sneer painted on his face. You like giants now, he taunts at her. She meets his gaze evenly. I like men who stand upright, she says, voice cold and certain. A few in the congregation gasp. One woman mutters under her breath. She'll regret it. She ants. The preacher hesitates, eyes darting between faces. You sure about this, ma'am? Yes, she says. Cold, unshakable. The ceremony is short, brisk. No music, no flowers, just vows muttered over frozen air, echoed by the creaking rafters. No applause. The congregation shifts, uncomfortable in their silence. Outside, someone throws a rock. It hits Boone's shoulder. He doesn't flinch. She steps forward instinctively. You will not scare me, she shouts. A low murmur rises through the crowd, almost like recognition. The nephew's face tightens. Boone grabs a bucket left near the door, ready for whatever comes next. Suddenly flames erupt near the church shed. Smoke curls high into the sky, black and fast, carrying a smell of kerosene and old wood. Stay back. Boone shouts. No, she replies. Together they run toward the fire, boots slipping on ice and ash. Men scatter, muttering, some laughing nervously, others unsure. The sheriff watches, doing nothing. She grabs a bucket and douses the flames with Boone. Another bucket. The fire fights back, hissing and snapping. Sparks fly, landing in the snow. They work quickly, side by side. Boone throws a glance at her. Don't, she says sharply, motioning at the edge of the fire. I can help. Stay smart. She nods but doesn't stop. Minutes pass, though the cold steals sense of time. The flames finally die, leaving smoke curling in lazy spirals. Boone stands, soaked, panting. She brushes ash from her coat, chest heaving. The sheriff finally steps closer. You done hiding? He asks, voice low. Boone doesn't answer. He just turns toward the crowd, assessing the scattered townsfolk. You think marriage makes you strong? The sheriff sneers. Boone studies her instead. No. She does. The words land heavy. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. The power has shifted slightly, quietly, like the wind moving through broken fences. She notices a few faces pale. A woman clutching a child stares, mouth open. A man mutters something about the preacher. She doesn't hear it. You hear that? Boone asks softly. She nods, catching only the shifting fear. Outside, the storm has slackened, but embers linger in the cold air. People begin to edge backward, away from the house, away from Boone, away from her. The sheriff frowns, realizing his command holds less sway. The nephew tries to stand tall but looks small in the wake of their calm defiance. She steps forward, voice loud, steady. You won't touch me. You will not scare me. Her words hang in the morning air. The crowd goes still, as if absorbing them. Boone's hand finds hers briefly. Not as protection, but partnership. A woman in the back whispers to another, she's brave. The other nods slowly, still wide-eyed. The fire's heat dies, leaving only smoke, but the intensity lingers in every gaze, every posture, every twitch of muscle. She looks at Boone. Did you expect this? He asks quietly. I expected silence. Not courage, she answers. A bell tolls faintly in the distance. Not warning, but a signal. Eyes follow the sound. Some shift uncomfortably. Some stand taller. Boone watches her carefully, expression softening. Storms come, he says. Always. She nods. Then we fight them, she says. Outside, the snow reflects the pale light of morning. People begin to move, murmuring among themselves, unsure whether to stay or retreat. The sheriff adjusts his hat, lips tight, realizing authority has slipped from him, if only slightly. They gather their things, cold wet from the firefight. She lifts the bucket, Boone collects a fallen log for the hearth. The church is scarred, blackened where flames kissed wood. Embers still glow faintly. The townsfolk watch from a distance, curiosity replacing hostility in some eyes. She and Boone step together onto the path back to the house. Snow crunches underfoot. She looks up at him. They'll be back, she says. Always. He nods. Then we'll be ready. A long pause. They walk toward the barn, where smoke has already cleared, the landscape flattened under white. Silence stretches, carrying weight, judgment, and recognition. For the first time, she feels the stir of respect, quiet acknowledgement that fear cannot command all. Boone glances at her. You did good, he says. She meets his eyes, tight-lipped, breath visible in the cold. So did you. They step inside the house together, boots leaving wet tracks on the floor. The fire crackles once, then steady, carrying warmth and the knowledge that outside forces have shifted. The storm, real or human, has tested them. They remain standing, side by side, unbroken. Smoke still curls lazily from the burnt shed. Ash drifts across the snow like gray snowflakes. Boone and the teacher stand side by side, boots sinking into the slushy white, watching the scattered crowd retreat. The old woman who had lingered behind finally steps forward, voice trembling. You don't know about the well, she says. Silence falls instantly. Boone tilts his head. What well? He asks, tone flat. The woman points beyond the church, near the back, where boards cover a dark hole in the ground. Down there, they keep what they take. She steps closer, eyes wide, boots crunching over frozen earth. Boone follows, careful, scanning the faces of the town. They pry back the boards. The smell hits first, rot, wet earth, something older than memory. She chokes back a gasp. Boone lowers the shotgun instinctively, hand shaking slightly, though he hides it. Inside the well are small bones, brittle and pale, some too small to be anything but children. Her stomach lurches. What is this? She whispers. The old woman trembles. They take what they want, and hide it. A man in the crowd shouts. Close it. The sheriff's voice, firm, but she can hear the edge of panic. Boone freezes for a second, then lifts his chin. Too late, he says. Others gather, drawn forward, murmuring, faces pale. Whispers ripple through the crowd, disbelief, horror, fear. She steps closer to the edge, hand resting lightly on Boone's arm. "They've been doing this for years," she says quietly. Eyes widen. A boy murmurs, "That's my cousin." A woman gasps, clutching a shawl over her mouth. Boone's hand tightens on hers. The sheriff shouts, trying to regain control. "Everyone back! Cover it! Now!" But the crowd doesn't move fast enough. People lean closer, murmuring names, connecting the lost to the missing, the buried, the forgotten. Boone steps back, surveying, calculating. She meets his eyes. "This is what we've been fighting," she says. "They bury the truth like bones," he replies. The air is thick with accusation, memory, and finally recognition. Some townsfolk turn, whispering to neighbors. The sheriff's control frays like old rope. She steps forward, voice cutting clear through the snow and murmur. "I will testify. Every hidden thing, every lie, every burial. They will not be forgotten." Boone watches the crowd react, tension rising like wind before a storm. "Don't," he whispers. "I'm not afraid," she says, louder. "Neither am I," Boone adds, stepping fully beside her. Together they stand at the edge of the well, calm but unyielding. The townsfolk shift. Whispers become questions, eyes. A few men try to speak, attempting excuses, deflection, denial. She ignores them. They bury children. They bury truth. And they expect silence. Not anymore. The crowd listens. Some bow heads. Some step back, unsure. Boone's presence amplifies her words, not his voice but his stillness, his strength, his readiness. The sheriff looks like a man stripped bare, his authority evaporating in the cold morning air. "You knew," she says to him directly, voice low, piercing. "Yes," he admits quietly. "And you let it happen?" Boone's hand finds hers again. She tightens her grip. The old woman steps forward, whispering names, faces, dates. People around murmur, connecting the dots, the missing children, the lost women, the small tragedies hidden behind doors and fences. The sheriff sputters, trying to intervene. "Enough! You'll ruin the town." "No," she replies. "You already have." Boone lifts his chin. "Truth isn't ruin," he says. The wind picks up, cutting through the crowd like a blade. Embers from the burned shed drift across snow, smoke still rising, and somehow, everything feels more alive, more exposed. She leans close to Boone, whispering. "This changes everything." "Yes," he says. "And nothing will be simple again." The crowd begins to step back slowly, realization spreading. Some faces pale. Some eyes narrow, quietly weighing, reconsidering power, respect, fear. The sheriff adjusts his hat, but his posture has lost its previous authority. He glances at Boone, then at her, and finally lowers his gaze. The well, the bones, the truth, it has shifted the balance. They step away from the well, together, boots crunching on snow. The crowd hesitates behind them, unsure, watching, murmuring. She looks up at Boone. "Are we done?" "Not yet," he says. "But we're closer." The old woman nods slowly, tears on her cheeks. "Finally someone sees," she says. A few children peek from behind parents, eyes wide. She kneels slightly, voice gentle. "You're safe. I won't let them hide it anymore." Boone stands beside her, silent, strong. Outside, the wind rises again, but now it carries a strange, almost reverent hush over the land. The sheriff steps forward, thin-lipped, defeated. Boone says nothing. She does not step back. "This ends now," she says. The crowd listens. Fear has changed sides. Power has shifted, subtle but undeniable. Snow drifts around their feet, cold and white, untouched except where footprints press into it. For the first time, she feels the weight of survival and defiance balanced equally, hand in hand with Boone. They stare down the wind, the well, the town, knowing nothing will ever be simple, but that truth has finally surfaced. The sun breaks slowly through a pale sky, weak but certain. Snow still blankets the land, drifting over graves, the barn, and the scorched shed. Boone and the teacher step outside, boots crunching, fingers brushing briefly. The storm is gone, but its memory lingers in every corner of the town. Silence hangs thick, as if the world itself is holding its breath. She lifts her gaze toward the horizon, snow melting into slush under thin streams of sunlight. "It's quiet," she says, voice low. Boone shrugs. "Not quiet. Waiting." She turns to him. "For what?" He doesn't answer immediately. "For them to understand what's real. The town lies ahead, small, stubborn, already stirring. Windows open, curtains twitch. Voices rise and fall like cautious waves. She feels the weight of the past weeks pressing into her chest. Everything that happened, the blizzard, the graves, the fire, the well, has led here. "Are we ready?" she asks. Boone glances at her. "As ready as we'll ever be," he says. They step together down the path from the barn, boots leaving deep impressions in the melting snow. Each step feels deliberate, a claim staked on the ground. She holds the shotgun lightly, not as threat but as witness. The sheriff meets them at the edge of town, hat low, hands hidden. "You think this ends today?" he asks. She meets his gaze without flinching. "No," she says. "It starts." Boone shifts beside her, eyes steady, a quiet wall of strength. A few townsfolk linger, murmuring, watching. Some clutch children, others tighten coats around their shoulders, trying to appear indifferent. She notices the widow who had whispered about the well, clutching a shawl over her chest. She steps forward, voice carrying. "All of you have hidden, ignored, and feared. But the truth isn't yours to bury anymore." A ripple passes through the crowd. Murmurs rise, soft and tense. The sheriff exhales sharply. "You'll regret this," he mutters. Boone's voice cuts through the tension, calm and firm. "Regret belongs to those who refuse to see." She glances at him, heart tightening. Side by side, they move toward the small square where the town gathers. She lifts the shotgun now, letting it rest against her shoulder, not aiming, not threatening, but showing she will not be moved. A boy from the crowd steps forward, trembling. "Miss, the graves, my cousin," she kneels, voice soft but unwavering. "He will not be forgotten. We will remember." The crowd shifts, unease spreading. Another man mutters, "She's bold." Boone adds, "Not bold. Alive." Silence falls again, heavier this time. Snow drifts around them, melting slowly, carrying traces of ash, dirt, and truth. She feels it settle in her lungs, cold and cleansing. "This is ours," she says, almost to herself. "To claim. To survive." Boone nods beside her, hand brushing hers briefly. The sun grows stronger. The snow begins to shrink in patches, revealing frozen earth, old roots, and the edges of hidden graves. She steps toward the largest patch, where the barn's shadow still lingers. Kneeling, she places a hand on the snow, feeling the cold seep in. "The storm took much," she says quietly. "But it left this. Proof. Memory. Survival." Boone leans against the barn, silent but alert. "And now?" she asks. "Now," he says, voice low, "we make them see." A woman from the crowd, thin and weary, finally speaks, voice trembling. You survived it all?" She looks at her, straight in the eyes. "We survived it all," she corrects. Boone nods once. "Together." The sheriff's jaw tightens, realizing authority has shifted completely. A child hides behind a parent, peeking. She kneels again, voice soft, carrying. "No one disappears without memory. No one is buried without witness. That stops today." Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Some nod. Some stare. Some turn away, ashamed. The weight of truth presses against the small town like the melting snow pressing against frozen ground. Boone steps forward, voice steady. "The land doesn't forgive those who hide what they do. Neither will we. She watches as eyes shift, some softening, others narrowing, but all watching. We claim this space, she says. Not for vengeance alone. For memory. For justice. The snow melts beneath her knees, cold running into the earth, water tracing paths like veins, revealing what was buried, exposing what was hidden. Boone stands beside her, silent sentinel, hand occasionally brushing hers in solidarity. Hours pass. The sun rises higher. Footprints crisscross the melting snow, marks of courage, defiance, survival. She looks at Boone. We did it, she says softly. For now, he answers, voice low but steady. Tomorrow, they'll test us again. She nods. Let them. We know now we won't run. They walk toward the barn together, boots leaving wet prints in the thawing snow. The town watches, silent but aware. The last ember of the burned shed smolders faintly, black smoke curling into the brightening sky. The teacher glances at Boone. Will it ever feel safe? He studies the horizon. Not entirely. But it will feel ours. She smiles faintly, just enough to feel warmth without words. Snow continues to melt, revealing the graves, the barn, the path they walk through storms, lies, and fire. For the first time in weeks, she feels the weight of survival without the pressing panic of fear. Boone places a hand over hers briefly. No words. Just acknowledgement. The town, the well, the graves, they remain. Witnessed now. Memory marked in stone, wood, and flesh. The sun fully clears the horizon. Snow drips from the barn roof in slow, steady droplets. She breathes in cold, clean air, letting it fill the hollows of grief, anger, and fear. Boone's eyes meet hers. We've lasted this long, he says softly. She nods. We'll last longer. Together, they step toward the house, the hearth waiting inside, the storm behind, the future ahead. Silence stretches, warm and fragile, like the melting snow. Memory and truth remain. The storm is gone. They are not.